that would grant me some sort of recognition or validation that all of us need from time to time. So when I joined college, I decided it's time I stop messing around and become more focused. I dedicated my entire first year in studying and gaining new knowledge. And over this lockdown, I've had a lot of time to ponder and think about all those things that I missed on my first year. About how happy I am academically speaking, but miserably small my social circle has become. And I decided from now onwards, I'm grabbing every opportunity possible and being as versatile as I can so I don't lose touch with who I really am. Right when I was searching for something new, thrilling, and exciting, I came across the mail inviting recruitments for RJs and I decided to sign up. And well, here we are. So, this is my mini message of the day. Before I start with today's case, is if you all ever miss that one part of you or that one activity that you used to do but stop for some reason, I urge you all to think again and continue something you're passionate about, as little moments such as this is what makes us alive and humane. Now, I wonder if you guys have watched this evergreen action series Mission Impossible. Ever wondered who or what could have possibly inspired them to jump off planes and dive and do a lot of crazy stunts which no sane person would ever think of doing? Well, if not, sit back and enjoy this tale of a man who did the craziest stunt of all time at the least expected moment and most importantly, got away with it. D.B. Cooper or Dan Cooper is the man who still has America in a twist. The only unresolved case of hijacking in the history of US till date. On November 24th, 1971, a mysterious man around mid-40s, about 6 feet tall, boarded the Northwest Orient Flight 305. His name was Dan Cooper. Shortly after his takeoff from Portland, he invited the flight attendant to sit beside him and softly whispered, "I have a bomb." He slightly showed her his briefcase filled with wires and batteries and handed her a note demanding 4 parachutes and 200,000 American dollars in $20 bills, which is about $1.2 million worth at present time. After the flight landed in Seattle, Cooper released 36 passengers when the authorities provided the demanded money and parachutes. However, he forced 2 pilots, a flight engineer and a flight attendant, to remain on the plane. After it got refueled, he ordered the pilots to fly to Mexico City, and as per his instructions, the plane flew under 10,000 feet at a speed slower than 200 knots. Around 8 p.m., while between Seattle and Reno, Cooper lowered the rear steps and jumped, and he then disappeared into the dark, raging thunderstorm, never to be seen again. The FBI launched what is now known as one of the longest and most exhaustive investigations in its history, known as NORJAC, Northwest Hijacking. From their extensive investigation, they formed a physical description of him as a white male, about 6 feet tall, 170 to 175 pounds, age mid-40s, olive complexion, brown eyes, black hair conventionally cut, parted on the left. According to the accounts of the flight attendants, they also got to know that he wasn't any normal crazed criminal. He wasn't anxious, he wasn't tense, he was in fact very relaxed, calm, composed, and he even ordered drinks for himself. He paid for his food and he offered tips. In other words, he was the perfect gentleman. The FBI agents recovered 66 unidentified latent fingerprints aboard the airliner. The agents also found Cooper's black clip-on tie, his tie clip, and 2 out of the 4 parachutes that he had requested. The local police and FBI agents immediately began questioning possible suspects and rounded up 800 individuals. A month after the hijacking, the FBI distributed a list of ransom serial numbers to financial institutions, casinos, racetracks, and other businesses, and also a physical description in hopes of launching a trap and catching Cooper in action. The 3 major pieces of evidence that were left on the plane when D.B. Cooper jumped were his black clip-on tie, a mother of pearl tie clip, and an 8 filter tip Riley cigarette butts. The information about the tie and tie clip were in fact not released to the public for almost 20 years, and only when in 1991, when the book D.B. Cooper, The Real McCoy was released, did these facts get revealed. And sometime after the hijacking, even the cigarette butts went missing and have not turned up since. Now, only 4 pieces of evidence, 2 definite and 2 potentially linked to D.B. Cooper, have turned up from the around 1978 to 2017. In November 1978, a placard printed with instructions for lowering the aft stairs of a 727 was found by a deer hunter near a lodging road which is within the mile radius of Flight 305's basic flight path. The second evidence was a portion of Brian Ingram's 1980 discovery. On Sunday, February 10th, 1980, a 8-year-old Brian Ingram was vacationing with his family on the Columbian River at a beach fen known as Tina. He uncovered 3 packets of ransom cash as he raked the sandy riverbank to build a campfire. The bills were significantly disintegrated but still bundled in rubber bands. The FBI technicians then confirmed that the money was indeed a portion of the ransom. And then, number 3, in 2017, a group of volunteer investigators uncovered what they believe a potential evidence which appears to be decades-old parachute trap which might be linked to D.B. Cooper's hijack. And the fourth and the last evidence was on August 2014 with a piece of foam suspected of being part of Cooper's backpack. Now we are moving on to the list of suspects. Between 1971 to 2016, the FBI had uncovered thousands of serious suspects, out of which I've picked a few interesting cases. The number 1 case is Kenneth Christiansen. In 2003, Lyle Christiansen, while watching a television documentary of the Dan Cooper hijacking, was convinced that his late brother, Kenneth Christiansen, was the hijacker. Kenneth Christiansen joined the army in 1944 and was trained as a paratrooper, an important point to note. After leaving the army, he joined the Northwest Orient in 1954 and was transferred to Seattle. Christiansen was 45 years old at the time of hijacking, close to the hijacker's age, but he was much shorter, thinner, and lighter in complexion than that of the eyewitness description. Christiansen and the hijacker, both of them smoked and had similar preference in beverages, and both of them were left-handed. Christiansen had also reportedly purchased a house right after the hijacking, and also his family members noticed gold coins and valuable stamp collections along with $200,000 in his bank account. The FBI later uncovered that the house that Kenneth Christiansen had reportedly purchased was actually on mortgage and it took him 17 years to repay it. And they also uncovered that Christiansen had sold over 2,000 acres of land to accumulate such cash. Therefore, despite Lyle Christiansen's claim, the FBI stood strong in its position and refused to accept Kenneth Christiansen as a prime suspect, as there was poor match to witness physical description, and the level of skydiving expertise exhibited by Dan Cooper was not similar to Kenneth Christiansen's, and an absence of direct incriminating evidence. The second suspect that I'm going to discuss now is quite interesting as it's a female suspect. Barbara Dayton, a recreational pilot and University of Washington librarian who was born in 1926, served in the US Merchant Marine and then the Army during World War II. After discharge, it was her dream to become a professional airline pilot, but she couldn't obtain a commercial license. Dayton claimed to have staged the Cooper hijacking 2 years later, dressed as a man to get back at the airline industry and the FAA, whose insufferable rules had refused to let her become a pilot. But She withdrew all of her statements when she realized that the hijacking charges would still be applied even after so many years. The FBI never commented on Dayton, who died in 2002, but still, it's an interesting case to be considered. The last suspect that I'm going to discuss is Richard Floyd McCauley Jr. Richard Floyd McCauley Jr. was an Army veteran who served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, first as a demolition expert and later with Green Berets as a helicopter pilot. After his military service, he became a warrant officer in the Utah National Guard and also an avid recreational skydiver. On April 7, 1972, McCauley staged the best known of the so-called copycat hijackings. He boarded United Airlines 855 in Denver, Colorado, and brandishing what later proved to be a paperweight resembling a hand grenade and unloaded a handgun, and he demanded 4 parachutes and $500,000. After delivery of the money and parachutes at San Francisco International Airport, McCauley ordered the aircraft back into sky and bailed out over Provo, leaving behind his handwritten hijacking instructions and his fingerprint on magazine that he had been reading. Later, a handwriting expert compared the note found on the plane with McCoy's writing on the military service records and determined that McCoy had written that note. He was then arrested on April 9th with ransom cash in his possession, and after trial and conviction, he received a 45-year-old sentence. But 2 years later, he escaped from the Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary with several accomplices by crashing a garbage truck through the main gate, and later was tracked down and in Virginia Beach, where he was killed in gunshot with the FBI agents. This case, even though it's quite fascinating, was also a revelation towards poor security measures. The Dan Cooper case marked the end of an unscrutinized and unprotected airline travel, and they forced airlines to take strict precautions to secure their airports and travel of their customers. In the year 1972 alone, that is the year after the Dan Cooper case, they saw more than 32 hijackings committed by various people motivated by Dan Cooper's actions. Even though this case seems very mysterious and interesting, I feel it's a classic example of how one crime can motivate another. The crime of hijackings is very severe and a threat to national security. Therefore, this shouldn't be ever taken lightly in real life. Not only was the security improved in airlines, even the planes were modified to avoid mid-flight jumps and escapes, etc. They even incorporated secret peepholes from the pilot cabin so the pilots wouldn't have to leave their cabin to know what is going on inside the passenger's space. An Indian perspective. In 2016, the government repealed the old 1982 Act and enacted a new Anti-Hijacking Act. Its objectives were in tune with the Convention for the Suppression of Unlawful Seizure of Aircraft. The Act further incorporated details where it specifically dealt with unlawful acts against civil aviation by new types of threats. They also modified Section 3 to expand the definition of hijacking to seizure or takeover of an aircraft using any technology. By this, they've also taken into consideration the possibility that a hijacker need not be physically present inside the aircraft to take control of it. An aircraft is considered to be in service from the beginning of its pre-flight preparation by ground personnel or crew for a specific flight until 24 hours after any landing. Well, so now we've reached the end for today on Truth Unveiled. Guys, please do comment below and let me know what you all think about my very first show. This is RJ Sushitha signing off from Voice It. Feel the rhythm.